Friday, March the 7th, 2003, and we're in the home of Dean Fechter, who was born in March the 4th, 1920, which makes him like 83 years old. And his home is a rural home on Oregon Trail Road, just north of Bellevue, Kansas. I'm Dean Schoengert, and I'll be interviewing Mr. Fechter today. Dean, what were you doing just before you got in the service?
Well, I was kind of buying a few cattle and getting started with a cow herd, I guess, and working out. My dad didn't have a very big place, but I was out around Salina helping a guy combine out there. One of our neighbors went out there to had a combine, and he was out there combining, and I was out there helping him. And being out there, well, when I had to sign up for the draft, and being as I was out there, well, I guess they decided that, well, I wasn't from there, and they could send me to the army right away and keep some of their guys at home, a little bit longer. So that's what happened. I got drafted right after, well, in October. I was out there in the summertime, and I got drafted in October, and had to sell off all my stuff and go to the service. I went to, we had to sign up for 4 years. After we was drafted, we could sign up for 4 years and get in the Air Force. That's the only way you could get in the Air Force was to sign up for 4 years. And so me and some of the other fellows around that went along signed up to go in the Air Force, and they sent us to Shepherd Field, Texas, to be a airplane mechanic. And we took a little bit of basic training there. It didn't really amount to a whole lot. We learned how to march and none of the rough stuff that the infantry and those guys get. And went to school. I don't remember how long it took, maybe 6 weeks or so to get through school and learn how to, to work on these airplanes. And so from there I was sent to Boise, Idaho for a little bit and joined an outfit there. And wasn't there but just about a month or so, and they sent us to Almaguerda, New Mexico, at air base there, and they had B-17s, the Flying Fortress then, and I had worked on one that was, they called it a groundhog. Was they named all them airplanes, and that one was the groundhog, I guess, because it didn't want to fly very bad. I don't know. Sat on the ground a lot. But it wasn't on them so very long, and we got a bunch of B-24s, and we was there. I don't remember how long we was there, but it was there quite some time, and I volunteered. They was wanting some gunners for combat crews on those things. What we were doing, what that base was a place that trained combat crews.
Oh.
We had a bunch of airplanes. We took care of a bunch of airplanes that that they used to train these combat crews that flew them. And I volunteered to go to gunner school to learn how to be a gunner on an engineer. If you was through mechanic school, why you could and learn to be a gunner on there. You could be an engineer on a B-24. So that's what I did. I volunteered and I went to gunner school and was promoted to staff sergeant because the engineer was a staff sergeant on those things, and I was promoted to staff sergeant. And but for some reason or other, and I never did know why, they sent me back to work on airplanes again with the same outfit. And a lot of the guys that were there were really upset because there was about 7 of us out of this. I don't remember how many there was that went to gunner school, but there was about 7 of us that they put back there to work on airplanes. And I guess they had more gunners than they needed, and I never did know why they didn't send me on to be a gunner, you know, an engineer on those things. But that didn't happen, and well, we were there for quite some time, and then got sent to Pueblo, Colorado, and we were doing the same thing out there, and run this, where taking care of these planes that they had run combat crews through. They had some Chinese crews even that came there. When we was in Alamogordo, we lost quite a few planes just in training down there. There was quite a few airplanes, several of those B-24s that just blew up in the air. I don't know what, I think it was maybe fuel fumes accumulated in the bomb bay, and it had a hydraulic pump in there that I don't know if that's what set it off or what, but an electric hydraulic pump that maybe sparked or something set them off, and they just blow up, and we lost several planes that way in the crew. And one time we had one guy forgot to lock the tail wheel on his B-17, and when they took off and went right through a barracks. But there wasn't anybody. It was right at chow time, and there wasn't anybody in the barracks, and nobody got killed. Even the guys that was in the airplane didn't get hurt. And it was quite an exciting deal. They finally, they thought, they was kind of thinking that maybe we wasn't taking good enough care of them planes, that why they was something happening to them, you know, in the air, and they made us crew, the ground crew, fly with them for a while because they thought we wasn't doing our job, you know, and they lost 2 or 3 of the good guys that was the crew chief that had to fly with them. You see, there was the ground crew. They had a crew chief, and he had 3 or 4 men that worked on these airplanes. And if your airplane, the crew chief would have to go fly with his airplane to make sure he was taking didn't make sure he was taken care of. Well, they lost a few of them, and they decided that I don't know what they ever figured out, but they quit making them fly with them then. And but I guess I was in Pueblo, Colorado for about 3 years, I think. And
Okay, can you describe a little bit the mechanics? Do you have to take care of the guns as well as
No.
the motor, or?
no, we took care of the engines and the hydraulics, and they had an armory division that took care of the guns and the ammunition and stuff. We had nothing to do with that. And the radios and automatic pilots and stuff like that was taken care of by some other electricians, and they had electricians and radio people, that anything like that. Every time they flew, the pilot would write down anything that come up that was wrong with it, and they practically always had a little list of stuff that needed fixing. We'd have brand new planes, but there was always something that on a lot of them that needed fixing, and we'd call up whoever the specialist was that worked on it. But our job was to take care of the engines and refuel them, and if an engine needed to be changed, why, we had a change in engine. It had 4 engines, yeah. We'd have to change the engine on them and pre-flight them, run them up before the crew come out to see that they was running right and everything. And that was our job. After, well, I don't know, I don't remember how long I was a crew chief on it, but after a while they made me a flight chief, which was, I had I don't know, 7 or 8 of those crew chiefs under me that had 7 or 8 planes to take care of, sort of. I don't know, one of the deals that I think the worst experience I had with taking care of those planes was that I had one that was just had trouble all the time. I just had a heck of a time keeping it in the air, and I thought that they was going to take my rating away from me because I couldn't keep it going, and they finally took me off of it and put another guy on there, and it was a higher rank than me, but he didn't have any luck with the thing either at all. They finally got rid of it. I don't know what they ever did with the thing, but I used to go every 100 hours we had to pull an inspection on them and change the spark plugs and fix anything that there were some things that they could fly without being fixed right away, like one generator out on one of the engines or something like that. Well, they could fly it and use the others and not worry about it, you know. But whenever we got through with an inspection, why, test flight, and I would go up as an engineer on the test flights, and we got when we got to Pueblo, Colonel took my plane up one day and come back, and he says, "Well, Fechter, you've changed since we was in Alamogordo," and he says, "You really got a nice plane here."
After that,
I said, "Well, I didn't change a bit." I said, "I just got an airplane." I got an airplane this time. I didn't have an airplane before. And I was there for they finally decided to, they was rotating guys overseas, and there was 7 or 8 of us there that they never would they'd never ship us out. If they wanted they wanted to keep us there, and but they finally got orders from someplace else to send these guys overseas. So we had they sent us overseas then, and I went to Los Angeles and got on a boat, and we went down around the bottom of Australia and up to Calcutta, India. We was sneaking over there, and that took us 41 days to get over there on this ship, and that was it was an old converted tanker that didn't have any ventilation in down where the beds was just right on top of each other, just stacked in there, and it was we had to cross the equator twice, and that was a hot son of a gun, and these holes where we were at was they just didn't have ventilation in them worth a darn, and we was in a storm for 5 days, and I was sicker than a dog in that thing. But I think by the time we got over there, my shorts had almost fall off. We didn't. When you get, I don't know, when you get feeling like that, nothing tastes good. I mean, this old seasickness is about as bad as it comes, and I got that, and so I don't know. Most of the guys didn't get it, but I did, and the only time we got to get off of the ship in Australia, and we was down in Australia, Fremantle, Australia. We got to get off of the ship for a half a day, and the people there was they brought up bushel baskets of apples out there to us, and and the guys were so wanted to get them an apple so dang bad, they'd start running and spilling them out on the ground, and these guys just really, they had to run or the guys would knock them down trying to get them some apples, but they got back on and went to Calcutta then, and that's the only time we got to get off of the ship on the way over there. We got over there, Calcutta, they took us about 300 miles north of Calcutta to a English air base that had B-24s, and they had Bombay tanks in them, fuel tanks in the Bombay, and they were hauling gas over the Himalaya mountains into China for the fighter planes, and that's what these, I guess they had converted some of those. I know they converted some of those bombers, or that's what they had used. Some of them that had already been in the combat, they used for bombers, while they used them to, and that's what I'd done over there, was took care of this airplane that flew fuel over the Himalayas.
Did you ever have to make that flight?
No, I never did. I never did make that one.
Did those planes have guns on them too, with a gun
No.
crew? Or?
No, they didn't have any armor on them at all. They took all of that off so they could haul more fuel. There wasn't any combat business about it at all.
No.
This crew, this bunch that I was with, had been in, done a lot of it before I got there. But this was just at the end of the war, and while I was there is when they dropped the atomic bomb, and that was the end of it. So they told us then that if our airplanes was in good enough shape, well, we could fly them home, and we wouldn't have to take the boat back home. So me and the boys that I had working with me changed 2 engines on it, and a fuel cell in the wing that was leaking a little bit, and I never noticed that. And, well, I don't think it had started leaking until about the time we was getting it ready to come home. Why, it seemed to have sprung this leak, and we had to hurry up and get that changed so we could fly it home. And
Were these planes, when they make that fuel run, would they do that in one day? Go up and back in one day? Or?
Yeah. Take them all day to do it. Yeah.
So how many was on the plane coming home? Just your crew?
Well, I think there was about 5 guys that came home. Besides, I was the engineer. I engineered it on the way home, and the pilot and the co-pilot and radio operator. And there was about 4. I don't remember exactly how many there was. There was 4 or 5 other guys that was on the crew that wanted to come home with us. So
were you flying with a group of airplanes, or?
well, no, I guess we I never did see them. We all took off. Don't remember how that went now, but wherever we landed, we landed 9 times. It took us 9 days to get home with that airplane.
Huh.
See, they only flew about 200 miles an hour on those bombers. So
So what route was it? Come through Japan or Philippines?
no,
or?
we went I got a map. I've been around the world in
Mhm.
the whole deal. I've been clear around the world. We went to from India. We went to Iran, and then down to Dakar, Africa, and then over to I don't remember. Can I go look at a map?
Yeah. That's all right. It's all right, sir. How did you get across the ocean? Can you tell us that?
Well, I didn't know. I can't remember whether Dakar is in Africa or Natal is in South America. Which one is which?
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that map.
Military naval map of the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And oh, it was. We went from Rupsi, India to Cairo, Egypt, and from Cairo, Egypt to Tripoli, Libya, and from Tripoli, India, we went to Morocco, or Karachi, and from there we went down to Dakar in Africa, French West Africa. And from there we went across to Natal, South America. That was about our longest flight from there to across the ocean. When we took off there, why we had one engine to act up a little bit, and the pilot asked me if I thought, well, he showed it to me what was going on, and I said, well, that ain't too bad. I think we can probably make it on 3 engines if we have to. And so we went on, but that engine straightened up, and we had no problem with it at all. I think when we got over there, though, in South America, we had to, I think I changed the fuel pump on that engine, and that's the only thing that I had to do to that sucker all the way home. We just didn't have any problem with it.
So you came into Florida then?
Yeah, we went up to west coast of South America and up to Georgetown. We went to Georgetown and there over to Puerto Rico, and then from Puerto Rico into Florida.
And how quickly did you get home?
Well, it took me about 30 days after we got to the United States for me to get home.
Have you been ranching and farming ever since?
No. When I got out of the service, I went to work for Neil Balderson, and I worked there for about 4 years, and I learned how to weld, and all the while I was working there, but we had saved $2,000 and bought a farm out west of town, and while I was working at Balderson's, I was buying a cow whenever I could save up enough money to buy a cow. I'd buy a cow, and I started finally bought some that I could milk, and I started selling milk to Virgil Hawes that used to bottle milk there.
The GI Bill really helped you
Yeah,
get a start in farming.
I
You used that.
yeah, I used that GI Bill, and I think I used part of it up at when at Balderson's.
Hmm.
They
What bomber was that?
B-24.
Yeah, and that's what you had in India.
Yeah.
Lily Marlene. Huh?
There was a song by that by oh, trying to think of the guy's name that sang that song. I know his name as well as I know my mind, but I can't say it right now. He's one of the real popular singers at that time. Great big circle where these airplanes sat on a cement slab out on the. It was spread apart so that if they could come to bomb them, why they couldn't hit them all at once. You know, they had and they had a whole trainload of Indians would come out there every morning, and they'd work keeping the grass cut and stuff like that around. And this picture here is of a woman's baby laying under in the shade of the wing of my airplane, and there's not very good photos. They didn't have too good a development deal over there, I guess. But anyhow, there's a picture of some of these women out in there cutting grass, and there's my airplane there in the corner of it next to the jungle there. But they was talk about poor people. Why, them are poor people. You know, you can't imagine that, you know, until you see that kind of stuff. You hear a lot about on television about, you see them on television, but if you're there, it's a lot more impressive than what you see on television about how poor the people are. There's an ox cart that they drove out there.
Let's get that flying tiger there. Is that what you were serving? Those right there.
Oh yeah, this is when we brought our plane home. Why, this is the way he had it painted up. I didn't have the full picture of it. I just shot the front end of it there the way they, and a lot of them had these teeth on them.
With these larger pictures.
Yeah. That's the one we was married in. That's a picture of the chapel in Almaguarda, New Mexico, where we were married.
Mm-hmm.
There's one of the pictures on one of the side of one of the airplanes. Calamity Jane, sitting pretty. That one. There's Miss Burrell. These are some. These here are ships that bomber was supposed to have bombed.
Oh, I see.
And then these are the bombing missions. There's nothing with a bunch of bombing missions that, and see, this has got them teeth on the front of it too.
Mm-hmm. Your bomber group was called Flying Tigers also?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which was your plane?
There's Lily Marlene. That's the way it was until we were ready to come home. You see the difference in it. It didn't. There's the way they painted it up to bring it home.
Mm-hmm. That's the one the song is made about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was Perry Como, you say?
Yeah, Perry Como recorded this song, Lily Marlene, standing by the barracks gate. I seen magazine a book advertised in out in California that was a show has a picture of 1,000 of these, over 1,000 of these airplanes with pictures on them, and on the front cover of that thing was a picture of one of the airplanes that we had. So I just wondered whether in that book my airplane was in there. So I ordered that book, and sure enough, it's in there. I got that book. You know, this is the airplane that was one of the pictures on one of the airplanes that was in our group, and so I sent for this book to see if mine would be in there, and here it is, right up here.
Okay.
And it's just full of pictures of
Airplane art.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's Gary M. Valent was the guy that done a lot of these. He was an artist in our outfit and I forget. Well, it tells in here all about him. He was really a good painter. He had worked for some magazine or something here in the States before the war.
You say you have a record of the song Lily Marlene?
Yeah, I got a tape of that.
You changed these two engines?
Yeah.
These are the ones you putting in or taking out?
I think them's the one we're putting in, getting ready to go in.
You just kind of tell me what you were doing before you got in the service